Hey guys, it's Leviatross. It's been a while since I uploaded, but I'm going to continue the series of Real Talk where I talk about movies that I've seen in theaters recently. And I'm a few weeks behind, but I'm going to go ahead and continue making episodes from where I left off. So some of the movies might be a bit older to start off, but I'll get caught up before too long. So the next time I went to the movie theater was to see Nosferatu and A Complete Unknown. Now, for both of these movies, I won't be going to any spoilers or things that I won't want to know myself before seeing the film. And so feel free to watch the whole episode without any concern about that. Now, I'm just going to go in the order that I saw the movies. So, starting with Nosferatu. Now, this is one that I was really excited to see because I have definitely heard of Nosferatu both as the movie and the vampire that keeps flickering the lights. And so, the thing is, I didn't really know anything about it, but the thing that really got me excited was that it's directed by Robert Eggers, and I've enjoyed his other movies that I've seen. And so, I felt like this was definitely an interesting movie that had a lot of potential with it. However, I will say I think I've part of why I delayed making an episode of Real Talk about Nosferatu was that I felt like I needed to sit on it a little bit, and then I ended up sitting on it a lot longer than I needed to kind of really form my thoughts. But the main thing that really made me uncertain about it is that my viewing experience was not the ideal theater experience because basically the person next to me throughout the movie was kind of like having audible reactions to various scenes. So near the beginning of the movie, there's this shot that opens with like a guy naked sitting on the floor, and she was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Now I will preface the movie has a bit of a sexual nature to it, and so just be aware of that and who you decide to see the movie with." But the thing is, for me, the viewing experience was a bit different because there'll be scenes where Nosferatu is like talking to this woman, like this voice, like echoing in her mind, basically. And he's talking to her, and then you're watching, and you're like, oh, she's like being seduced by Nosferatu. And it made it like an extra layer of uncertainty because the person next to me is kind of like reacting like, oh, oh, and like I was like, are they reading into it too much, or is this like actually what's supposed to be intended? And so it just kind of like threw me off a little bit. And throughout the movie, there's also a few scenes where like the acting performance, like they really go for it. Like it's a bit over the top, or like it could be a bit much if you're not like invested or like bought into the tone of the movie. And so when you're watching these scenes that are a little bit out there, and the person next to you is like chuckling, it kind of ruins the immersion of the film. So I kind of walked away from it initially a little disappointed. Like, it's beautifully shot, like really well directed, and the cinematography is great. The storyline and the tone and just kind of like the emotional experience of the story throughout it, I felt a bit underwhelmed by. And I think part of that is because it wasn't just like an objective theater experience. And the more I've thought of it, like I've also seen posts where other people are kind of like, oh, like this, I misinterpreted this, or like I didn't pick up on this part and stuff like that. So I really feel like I need to see the movie. Like I am interested to see the movie again. And I feel like I definitely didn't get a comprehensive intended experience the first time. And so that's just something to be aware of. And I feel like it's probably pretty good. Like I'm definitely glad I saw it, but I do say that about like every movie I see, just because even if it's terrible, I'm like I'm glad I saw it, so I know why it's bad. So me saying that I'm glad that I saw Nosferatu, don't take that as any like commendation of the film. But I will say that this is one that is well done. It is a bit like artsy, like art house kind of horror movie. So be prepared that if you're going to see it, it's probably going to be very like a slow burn, and there's going to be a lot of scenes that seem very like dreamlike, and a lot of the times it's like, oh, this is like the reality of like what's happening throughout the story. So sometimes it feels like you're almost watching like montages at times more than like actual like straight up here's the events and so on, just because it has this like very almost like abstract style to it. And so I feel like I'm not explaining it super concisely, but it is a movie that's kind of hard to accurately convey. And so if any of this is a turnoff to you, I think it may be not your type of movie. But if you're willing to, if you still sound interested and like this is something that you're willing to get into and kind of see like a bit of a different type of horror movie, then I think this is one that you will probably enjoy if you have not been turned off by everything I've said so far. But I do want to kind of reiterate that the movie is beautifully shot. It's very well done. The cinematography and everything like that. The tone, I think, is very. Um, it's definitely not going for broad appeal. and like general audiences. But I'm glad that they went for it, and I feel like it is a good movie. I just feel like my experience was a bit not the intended one, but I feel like the movie overall, the craft of the movie itself is quite good. Now, I'll go ahead and move on from there. Next, I saw A Complete Unknown, which is the Timothee Chalamet Bob Dylan biopic movie, which it's I saw a post that was like they're making The Young Rock, which is crazy that they're making a TV show about someone's life who is still alive and active in their career. And I was kind of surprised that like they made a movie about like a musician and they went with Bob Dylan that I if they wanted to like really make sure that the movie made a profit, I feel like Bob Dylan is not the top of the list of like who you would make a movie about today. And I say that largely because I don't really know a lot about Bob Dylan. Like I'm sure I recognize a few songs by him, but I couldn't name it like yeah, I don't know if I can name any songs by Bob Dylan before I saw the movie. But I like Timothy Chalamet. I love films in general, so I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And as someone who is not familiar with the music and the like person of Bob Dylan, I feel like the movie was pretty good. Like I think it's a bit of an uphill battle when you go into it with like no familiarity or like nostalgia for his music. But I feel like throughout the movie, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. Like it wasn't anything that's like, oh, this is like really dragging. Anything that was like hard to watch. I think the movie was like pretty well made, and I think just going through the journey, it did give me a better appreciation for that type of music. Um, One thing to be aware of also is that the movie it follows like the first few years of his career, and so it's not like an entire comprehensive like life synopsis. It's like, hey, here's the beginning of his career. Here's where he starts like make it big, and kind of like his turn away from like the classic kind of like folk music that he started with, and moving more towards the electronic stuff. And so the movie is not like a full like here's his entire life. It's like, oh, here's like the beginning of it, first few years. And I felt like it was pretty good. Like, as I stated, I wasn't super familiar with his music and or have like a strong affinity for it. Watching the movie, I wasn't bored. It's getting nominated for like Best Picture, which seems a little surprising because it definitely like wasn't bad by any means, but I didn't feel like there was anything that like really enraptured me. There wasn't any moments that I felt like emotionally devastated or anything like that. And again, that might be just because I'm not as invested into the person. But I will say one thing I did like is that sometimes when they make a movie about a actual person, and especially when they're still living, I feel like it might be very like sugar coated or very forgiving of the actual person's actions. But I felt like this movie they didn't really do like they didn't bend over backwards to like make him look good and stuff like that. Like any controversies he has, I don't really know, but it does show that like he's in relationships and he's like cheating on his partner and stuff like that. That's not just like, oh, he was great and there was nothing bad that he did. Everything was totally cool and he's a good guy. It felt like it was like a very it felt more like objective and like here's how he actually is rather than just kind of trying to like defend everything that he did in his life. And so I don't know, like I haven't really looked into his life after seeing the movie, so I don't know how much of it is like, oh, they ignore this or like they really emphasize this. But I felt like it was pretty measured, and I think that's a bit rare when it comes to directing a movie about a specific person to not go out of your way to make them look better than they may have actually been. So I did appreciate that. Overall, I felt like it was a pretty good movie, not something that I am really like reflecting on and gonna think back to. But I enjoyed seeing it for what it was, and I mean, I feel like I probably wouldn't have seen it if Timothy Chalamet wasn't in it. But I felt like he did a very good job, and then also him being on Saturday Night Live as the host and musical guest, playing more of his obscure songs live. I thought was definitely interesting. And I didn't realize until then that Timothy Chalamet was just like already so into Bob Dylan. I felt like I assumed that I was like, oh, they want a big name actor. Timothy Chalamet is pretty hot right now, so makes sense to cast him. But I was glad that Timothy Chalamet had a passion for Bob Dylan beforehand, and the musical performances throughout it. It definitely like I felt like the level of quality of the performances is kind of like what you would anticipate if they cast like a musician to play the role, because I felt like there's a lot of scenes of him playing music and it's like there's no cuts. It's not like he picks up the guitar and then it cuts to his hands close up and it's like someone else's hands playing the guitar. Seems like he's doing it all himself throughout the movie, so definitely glad to see that. So overall, it's pretty good. I don't feel like it's something that you really need to see, and I feel like the critical reception is a little bit more than I was anticipating, but I'm definitely not like I don't have anything really negative to say about it. It was like not bad, and I wasn't bored throughout the movie. So if you like Bob Dylan and or like if you're only going to see it for Timothée Chalamet, I don't know if that's really enough to say like you gotta see it. But I think if you are into Bob Dylan, I think this is definitely a movie that you'll enjoy. But that's gonna wrap it up for the theaters I saw that weekend. So thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Quick note, I will say it's been a while since I got back to doing YouTube. I want to continue being more consistent with making videos and also live streaming. But starting with the videos, I want to do more real talk, be more consistent with that. There'll be like two or three more episodes that I can record right now since I've already been to the theater a few times. And then on top of that, I want to make a video about like my top 5 movies of last year, maybe 10. I'll make a list and see like at what number it makes sense to cut off. But in terms of gaming, I do want to make more content about that. I don't really have a lot of ideas about like specific videos to make, but I would like to live stream more consistently. And part of why I kind of like delayed for a while before making another video again was I was really dedicated to beating Metaphor Refantasio because I've been really enjoying it, but I hadn't beaten it yet and been out for a few months. So I just like kind of put all my free time into playing Metaphor Refantasio, which is like an 80+ hour game, so it still took a while to play through. But I beat it. I want to continue live streaming and kind of ideally get to the point that I'm just like anytime I play games, I'm like, oh yeah, like let's just go ahead and stream this. And so the next few streams that I do will probably be Final Fantasy 16 because I really enjoyed that game when I was playing it. And after being Metaphor Refantasio, the next game on the list has been Final Fantasy 16. But I will say when Monster Hunter Wilds comes out, I'll probably get derailed playing that and streaming it instead, just because I am looking forward to it and definitely want to share my experience with it. So if you've been enjoying the content so far, just know that I'm looking to dedicate more time to doubling down on making more videos more consistently and also live streaming a lot more frequently than I have ever. Well, maybe with the exception of the Persona 4 Golden real time playthrough, because that was something every day, but some days would be like 4 minutes, some days would be like an hour and a half. I'm looking to do more like maybe a few like 1 hour streams a week or something like that. But either way, stay tuned. Feel free to subscribe and let me know if there's anything that you would like to see yourself. But either way, thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.